Hi guys, and welcome to today's video. If you have not joined me before, welcome. My name is Melissa Joyce and thank you for joining me for this review today. And if you are coming back, thank you so much for joining me again. Today we are going to be talking about a Canadian beauty product, Canadian beauty line, and that is Joe Fresh. I've tried a couple of Joe Fresh products before, a black liquid eyeliner, which I quite enjoyed, and I have a couple of little eyeshadow singles that are fine, but I thought this time I noticed when I was out in the store the display and that they had stick foundation, and I thought, well, it'll be interesting to try an inexpensive stick foundation and see how it does. I've also never used stick foundation before, so I got the foundation stick from Joe Fresh, and I also picked up the Illuminating concealer, and I thought this would be a good time to put these products to the test. I'm going to do what I normally do in my reviews, is talk a little bit about the company, a little bit about the products, and then I'll get into the review. And what I've done for this is I did a first impression day where I showed you putting it on for the first time, the wear through the day, and then I've also been putting this to the test over the last week so that I can give you my thoughts on trying it with different powders, different primers, all that sort of thing, so that I have a fully formed opinion on it. You're also going to see my hair color change through this because I got my hair done partway through the week. And if you want to jump forward to certain parts of this video, I will put the timestamps down below. And let's talk a little bit about Joe Fresh. Joe Fresh is a Canadian brand that was started in 2006 and is headquartered in Toronto. It is owned by the Loblaws group of companies, which is a grocery store. So I think this may be the only brand that I know of that was started by a grocery chain in Canada. But Joe Fresh is best known for their clothing line. It's men's, women's, children. It tends to be very basic clothing, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's sort of wardrobe staples. I've actually never bought any Joe Fresh clothing, but I know a lot of people say you can get really inexpensive like wardrobe staples from Joe Fresh and then sort of like build on top of it, and it's inexpensive. So in Canada, you're going to find Joe Fresh for sale in Loblaws locations, real superstores, basically any grocery chain that is owned by Loblaws that is large enough to have a Joe Fresh section in it. And they really vary depending on the size of the stores, how big the section is. And Joe Fresh also has some standalone stores in Canada. And in addition to that, there are some standalone stores in the US, I believe in like Philippines, United Arab Emirates. It's actually further outside of Canada than I expected it to be. And if you're in the States, you can also order things online from Joe Fresh. Joe Fresh does give back to the community. They have the Joe Fresh Fund, and a big part, it seems, of what they do is support young up-and-coming Canadian or new Canadian designers and fashion brands. They have started at Ryerson University in Toronto in the fashion zone, the Joe Fresh Fashion Innovation Center or something like that. Basically, it's almost like a entrepreneurship incubator, but specifically for fashion brands. So I think it's kind of a cool thing that they do to sort of help other Canadian fashion brands move up in the world. In their beauty range, if you are looking to find their makeup, you are going to find it at, again, Loblaws, Real Canadian Superstore, you know, all those ones that are kind of under the Loblaws brand name. And not only do they have makeup, but they have other products like the little cotton pads and cotton balls, and you know, there's accessories as well to go with it, and a whole line of cosmetics. So not only do they have the stick concealer, they have stick foundation, they have a illuminating foundation, they have primers, they have liquid matte lipsticks, they have all kinds of things. Not a huge range in each kind of product, but they do have a wide variety of products that they do. All of their packaging is very simple, and I actually don't mind this. It's all in this white, it's white and orange is their brand, and you don't actually see that here, but some of their products are packaged in orange. And the display is usually orange, and there's a lot of just very minimalistic white packaging for the brand. All the prices are sort of between you know, $3 to $5 and like $18. It's a very affordable brand. And you will also find this now in Shoppers Drug Mart, as they've started to sell it there, which is another Canadian drugstore chain. Talking about these products in particular now, there is not a lot for me to say. I was super surprised. I went and bought these products. I, got them off the display. All it basically said was the price. And I got home and thought I'm going to do what I usually do, which is do a bit of research, look at their website, that kind of thing. And so I got to joefresh.com and it has all of their clothing, information about them, and nothing on their beauty section. There just wasn't. There was nothing there. You would not think they had a beauty section if you went to their website. And Googling a bit more, I mean, they show the products on the Shoppers Drug Mart website, but if you go, there's absolutely no description of them. It just shows the products. The most I can tell you about these is how much they cost. This was between $16 and $18, depending on where you were looking to pick it up. And this, I believe, was $8 to $10, depending again on where you picked it up. So they are in an affordable range. There is not a huge shade range. I believe the Illuminating Concealer was in 4 shades, and this was in 6 shades, I believe, with Porcelain being the lightest one. So not a huge shade range, which isn't great. So hopefully if you're interested in one of the Joe Fresh products, especially their base face products, it will come in a shade that works for you. Because it is such a limited shade range, I'm going to show you some swatches of this next to other foundations that I have so you can get an idea of the tone and shade of this. And I will also do the same with the Illuminating Concealer next to some other concealers that I own. So here we have the Joe Fresh foundation in Porcelain. Next to that we have L'Oreal True Match in Neutral 2. And you can see it's a bit pinker. Next to that, I have the Rimmel Stay Matte BB Cream in Light. This one is the e.l.f. BB Cream in Light. And this right here is the L'Oreal True Match in Cool 2. For our concealer, this is the Joe Fresh Concealer in Light. This is the Maybelline Age Rewind in Brightening, which is quite a bit pinker. And then this is the Maybelline Age Rewind in Light, which is not as pink and darker than the Joe Fresh concealer. Now let's get into the first impression of this so you can see how it did on my skin on that first day. My face has been washed and moisturized, and I have put on my Cover FX mattifying anti-acne primer, and it's time to crack into this. I've actually never used a stick foundation before. The rattling makes it feel a little cheap, but that's what we got. I took a total guess on shade. Basically all you could do is look at the sticker on the end, which doesn't do the best job of showing shade range. So I'm gonna do half my face with the brush, half with the Beauty Blender. I'm going to start out with the Beauty Blender since that is sort of my comfort zone, and then I will try the brush to see what kind of different coverage it gives. Huh. So, shade's not a great match. It's a little light and maybe a touch yellow. It blends out easier than I expected it to. For some reason, when I see people using stick foundations, I always think they're going to be super stiff. Okay. It definitely evened everything out on this side of my face. The shade I definitely think I can work with. It has maybe a little bit of that look where it looks like it's filling in your pores and therefore is more dense where my pores are. And also I wouldn't necessarily say this is full coverage because I can definitely see my freckles through here. I mean, especially I've got a few bigger ones on my forehead, but maybe after we try with the brush side, I'll try to build it up a little bit more and see if I can get fuller coverage should I want it. So I'll try to use about the same amount for the brush side. I think that's about the same. And I'm using my Real Techniques Expert Face Brush. So far my first thought is I seem to be getting higher coverage with the brush. So I definitely got higher coverage on the side with the brush, but it also looks a little bit more like it's sitting on top of my skin. Now I'm not usually a full coverage foundation kind of girl, So it could just be the difference I'm seeing is between a higher coverage where you're going to notice the foundation a little bit more versus probably like a medium coverage where I see my freckles through it and it looks a little bit more like my skin. I'll zoom you in to take a look before I do try to build it up anymore. So it's all sitting pretty well here, but you can see, you definitely still see my freckles through. But it doesn't seem to be sort of patchy anywhere. I'm just not sure I love sort of how it's accentuating my pores, but it all looks good on my forehead. But again, like you definitely see my freckles through. Whereas on this side, it looks a little bit more patchy and unblended with the brush. And it's definitely higher coverage here. It's covering up more of my freckles, but it also just looks a little bit more like a layer of foundation sitting on the skin. Because I do have some freckles up here that are noticeable, let me see what I can do about building up the foundation on the sponge side to see if it can give a higher coverage. Not sure I got that much more coverage. And it does seem when I start to build it up a little bit, it almost starts to look a little bit drier on my skin. Overall though, I'd say this did a nice job of coverage. It's actually a little bit more coverage than I usually get with my foundations. It is looking pretty skin light. It's like it's not doing anything funky or anything weird. And I think I'm liking it so far. Let's crack into the concealer and I will try doing some under eye concealing. So this is the concealer. It's the Illuminating concealer in the shade Light. It's a nice clear acrylic tube and a very long flat doe foot. It doesn't seem to pick up a huge amount of product, like it's not thick sitting on top of it or anything, so let's see how far this goes. How about we zoom you in a bit for this part? Okay, that's pretty light and pink toned. Yeah, the wand doesn't actually pick up a huge amount. I'm not usually somebody who does huge triangles of concealer, but I'll do a little bit more than usual today just to see how it looks. And I'm going to blend that with my very sad beauty blender. And on the other side, I mean, that blended out very easily. On the other side, I'm just going to use my ring finger because sometimes I just use my finger to blend my concealer. So it's actually pretty lightweight. It's not super creamy like say the NARS concealer is that I've been using lately, which is I think the creamy matte one. But it does look like it has, you know, provided some illumination and some coverage. I have a big freckle right here under my eye, so you can see it's not super high coverage. It's a little bit more of a natural look, but it's also not looking in any way cakey or, you know, clumpy or like it's creasing or anything right away. So far, I'm actually pretty impressed with this, considering it's not even a drugstore product, it's like a supermarket product. I'm gonna go powder the rest of my face and put on my makeup, see how everything does on top of it. It's about 11 a.m. right now. I had a morning of going to the gym, messing around, just took a little while to get filming. So we're gonna call the check-in time 11. So I've got all of my makeup on and I'm back to give you a few more first impression thoughts. It doesn't look bad. It looks a little thicker and cakier than I'm used to my foundation looking, especially when I put some powder on top of it. But again, I don't know if that is just because I put it on to higher coverage level than I usually do with foundation. So today's first impression, I will go through and see how this wears throughout the day with how I applied it today. And then I will be spending some time using it in different ways, different, you know, coverage levels, different powders, different primers, things like that. So I can really see, is this something that I would reach for a lot and what is the best way to use it? So everything blended out pretty much okay on top of it. I use my Rimmel Stay Matte powder to powder my face. I use my Wet n Wild Photo Focus setting spray to set it at the end. So those are the extra products that I use today to get it to stay in place, and I will check in with you a little bit later on today. Hey guys, it is just coming up on 4 o'clock, so this has been on for coming up on 5 hours, and I thought it was looking okay when I was briefly looking at myself in the mirrors in my place when I was kind of going by, because I'm not looking too shiny, it doesn't feel too heavy or anything, but then I got the mirror out and did a close look and it is definitely having some issues. So let me zoom you in and I will show you hopefully what I've noticed. So first of all, I must have touched my forehead or something because you can see how patchy that is right there. And there's a few other patchy places as well, including on my nose where it looks like I must have just briefly touched my face and it's rubbed off. What I also noticed, and I'm going to zoom you in uncomfortably close for this, but well, from far away it looks like I've got coverage. In the areas where I've got pores, it actually looks like most of it has been rubbed away, and I've been pretty careful to not touch my face, but it almost looks like the foundation is just filling my pores. So it almost looks spotty with my pores, looking like I've somehow managed to just get foundation in there. Let me zoom you, like I said, uncomfortably close to see if I can show you. And I think you can see a little bit on my nose. I've wiped off some that are accidentally rubbed off some of it here. But hopefully you can see. I wonder if I turn. You can see how spotted that looks, and it's because the foundation has settled into the pores where it's almost like wiped off where it's not the pores. At first I wasn't too sure about it because it looked kind of cakey, and then during the day I was thinking I'd change my mind because it was starting to look like it had sort of melded with my skin a bit more, but I really don't like how this is looking close up right now, and that's disappointing, although, you know, there's always different primers, different ways to prep my face that I can try out. In any case, I'm going to still keep wearing this. I'm going to try to do a check-in around the 8 to 10 hour mark, definitely the 10 hour mark, maybe also the 8 hour mark. I'll see when it looks like I need to show you guys again what's going on with it. Hey guys, it is about 8 o'clock right now, so this has been on for 9 hours, and I'm going to call it because it's not changing and it's not getting any better, and I just want to sort of get it off of my face. It hasn't necessarily changed in how it looks since the last time I did a check-in. The funny thing is it looks like it's wiped off in certain places, but then I can also very clearly still see some of my contour and bronzer, but here's a couple of things. It's still doing that thing where it looks like it has filled my pores in on my nose and in all this area. Around the rest of my face, it feels like it feels a little heavy slash tacky. Like I can still feel it there, and it just feels a bit, yeah, heavy. As far as the under eye concealer goes, my first impression is that very lightweight and natural. It does not seem to crease at all on me. It's not super high coverage in any way whatsoever, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So I don't have necessarily negative feelings about it, but I also kind of wanted to compare it to some of my other drugstore concealers and see, you know, what it offers in comparison to those. So the next time you see me, it's going to be a week later because I'm going to be testing this foundation and this concealer out in a number of different ways, and I'll be back to give you my final thoughts. At this point, it feels like there are better options at this price point than this, but we will see if it does something magical and wonderful when I use it with different primers, different powders, all that sort of thing. Through the rest of the week, I tried this out with some different primers, without primer, with different powders over top of it, and no matter what I did, I was having the same problem every day with it. Basically seemed like it just wanted to move off my skin the moment that you touched it or brushed it in any way, and all it wanted to do was collect into my pores and collect into any creases and lines on my face. It was almost like it was trying to be a pore filling product rather than something that sat on top of my face. The only day that I could make it kind of look good was when I used a Smashbox primer and then used this MAC mineralized skin finish on top, but really, probably if I just had used the primer and the mineralized skin finish, it probably would have looked better than having the foundation beneath it. what I actually did just at the end of the day yesterday, I'm filming this in the morning, was I ended up picking up a Benefit Professional. I've actually never used a pore filling primer before, but I thought maybe if I could fill my pores with a pore filling primer, the foundation would sit better on top of it. So that is what I'm testing out today. Editing Melissa, who will be looking at this video later on, will let you know down below or just over my face here whether it looked okay today with the pore filling primer. But here are my final thoughts. This is probably one of the biggest fails of foundation I have ever used. So even if I found the right combination, even if the pore filling primer makes it look great, all of that, I don't want to work this hard to get a foundation to work well for me. And even on the days that it looked okay, like yesterday when I was using the Mineralized Skin Finish from MAC, it still feels really heavy on the face. And it feels like it's there, you know, like you're wearing foundation. And that's even without a very thick layer of it on my face. So to me, this is a big pass. I, as I said, don't want to have to work this hard to make a foundation look good. I, as I said, have enjoyed some of their other products, so I'm not saying this is, you know, a fail for the whole Joe Fresh line. Just this foundation, pass for me. I would save your money on this and not go for this. My feelings on the Joe Fresh Illuminating Concealer are a little more murky. So what I did not like about this is I felt like it never really sunk into the skin. It moved around a lot when I was trying to pat it in either with my fingers or with a beauty blender, and it doesn't give a whole lot of coverage. On the other hand, it doesn't crease a lot and it's very natural looking. So if you like a very thin, lightweight, more natural looking concealer just to give you a little bit of brightness under the eye, you may like this. But I also didn't feel like it hung in for that long through the day, even when I set it with powder. So I still think there are better, comparable in price options at the drugstore. Like my Maybelline Age Defying Concealer, I just feel like it does a little bit more for me than this does, and I just feel like save your money on it. I mean, this one was not as much of a fail as the foundation. There were things about this I liked. I will probably use this from time to time, maybe even when I'm having a no makeup day and I just want to brighten up under my eyes a little bit. But I wouldn't expect this to hang in for like 8 to 10 hours of wear. You're maybe gonna look like you can notice the brightness for 4 to 5 hours under your eyes. So I hope you liked this foundation review today and concealer review. If you did, please consider giving me a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed, please think about subscribing. You may wish to watch some of my other reviews. And if you have any comments about the Joe Fresh line, about other stick foundations to try, about other Joe Fresh products to try, about what your experiences have been, put that in the comments down below. I respond to every comment that I get, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Have a wonderful day. Bye.